a mixed martial arts fighter opted to behave like a responsible father, choosing to forego a match to attend his daughter's birthday party and advocate for his rights as her dad. The movie commences in a gym, where an MMA athlete named Octavio Bergman is getting ready for a scheduled confrontation later in the day. He penned a note for his daughter Laney, who was celebrating her birthday that day. He practiced with fellow fighters when his manager and buddy Paul walked into the room. Octavio inquired about the fight's commencement, expressing the urgency to make it to his daughter's birthday bash. However, due to unforeseen delays, Octavio grew anxious about potentially arriving late for the birthday celebration. He phoned Laney and pledged to appear immediately after the fight, before ending the call with both Paul and his coach Cosima. They proceeded to Nick's Arena, the designated venue. Inside, a vibrant individual named Chino Winkler and his brother warmly welcomed them. Chino conveyed his respect for Octavio. Meanwhile, Octavio's opponent Benko exited his waiting room, ridiculing Octavio upon seeing him. This fueled Octavio's determination to defeat Benko, and he eagerly prepared in his own waiting room. Subsequently, Octavio got a call from his former girlfriend and the mother of his child, Mina, who scolded him for assuring their daughter that he would attend the birthday party, only to backtrack on his promise. The argument with Mina stressed Octavio, intensifying his desire to conclude the fight swiftly. However, just as the match was on the verge of beginning, Mina's attorney, David, contacted him, revealing that Mina was actively completing paperwork to secure full custody of Laney. Octavio expressed his disapproval, yet Mina grabbed the phone from David and verbally attacked Octavio, accusing him of allowing Laney to go hungry. The young girl had declined to eat, expecting her father to bring a cake so they could share the meal together. It appeared, as it did in the past, that Octavio was on the verge of breaking his promise once more. Unless he arrived at the birthday party within an hour, Mina threatened to deny him any further access to Laney. To avoid losing his daughter, Octavio hastily departed from the arena, determined to reach her within the hour. Little did Octavio know, a larger scheme was unfolding within the arena, and he was a crucial part of it. His unplanned departure unknowingly made him a target. Chino Winkler spotted Octavio fleeing and pursued him alongside their accomplices. Considering a taxi would be unhelpful during rush hour, Octavio chose to run. However, Chino Winkler and his associates cornered him, overpowering and successfully rendering Octavio unconscious. They transported him to a car with the intention of returning him to the arena. To their surprise, Octavio swiftly regained consciousness and subdued everyone. Subsequently, he walked away from the scene. Octavio received a call from his parents, puzzled as Mena had instructed them not to attend Lenny's birthday party anymore. Following that, Paul called to discuss the situation. Paul unveiled the fight's manipulation, revealing that influential people had wagered on Octavio to win. Octavio's escape triggered their ire, leading them to chase him down. Back at the gym, Octavio met Cosima, Bruno, and Annika, and together, they confronted the pursuers. Octavio fought off his chasers before seeking shelter in the office, while the others were engrossed in the ongoing clash. However, Cosima trailed him and insisted on knowing the situation. Upon grasping the circumstances, Cosima was bewildered but willingly aided Octavio, engaging in a fight with the henchmen alongside Bruno and Annika. Seizing an opportunity, Octavio fled through a window upon spotting a police car. He attempted to draw the officers' attention by knocking on their window, but they merely stared at him until a passing car prompted them to halt. Immediately after narrowly avoiding hitting Octavio, an irate Octavio exchanged heated words with the cops, almost leading to his arrest, further consuming his time en route to the police station. During this, Chino, Winkler's brother, collided with the police car using their own vehicle. Seizing the chaotic moment, Octavio swiftly fled the scene before either Chino's henchmen or the cops could apprehend him once more. Octavio took a brief respite to call Mina and extend his apologies for failing to make time for Laney. Subsequently, he headed to the shop to retrieve the cake he had ordered for Laney. Cosima was already present, and they were on the verge of departing when Chino's brother barged in and demolished the cake. This infuriated Octavio, prompting him to ruthlessly thrash Chino's brother before departing the premises. While leaving, he unexpectedly encountered Benko, and the other MMA fighter pursued him. Luckily, a biker named Rico appeared and extended an offer to transport him. Octavio agreed, but his relief was short-lived. Instead of being taken to the subway as expected, he found himself in an abandoned parking lot, bound and brought to meet Danica, the influential woman Chino had received money from to place a bet on Octavio. Octavio managed to break free once more, fleeing from the parking lot and making his way directly to the subway station, where he squeezed onto a closing train. Assisted by a young girl, he regained his freedom. Octavio then called Laney, only to face rejection from a disappointed Laney, upset at his delayed arrival. As Benko and his men emerged, Octavio swiftly ran away once again. Octavio stepped into the club, taking down the individual accompanying Benko before confronting his adversary. The clubgoers gathered around, forming a circle to witness the fierce showdown between the two opposing fighters. Benko displayed formidable strength, managing to bring Octavio down multiple times. However, Octavio relentlessly attacked until Benko was incapacitated and unable to rise again. Inhaling deeply, Octavio exited the club and spotted Paul in the distance. Glancing at his watch, Octavio recognized that Paul had been tailing him, Confronting Paul, Octavio sought confirmation that Paul had indeed been tracking him to inform others of his whereabouts, prompting Octavio to explain his predicament. Regardless of his location, Octavio always seemed to be discovered. Paul attempted to persuade Octavio to return to the arena and participate in the fight, emphasizing the importance of winning for Chino and everyone else. Paul aimed for victory and collaboration with Chino to secure more earnings, but Octavio staunchly declined. At that moment, reaching his daughter was Octavio's sole priority. Consequently, Octavio and Paul went their separate ways. Consulting his watch, Octavio realized he had a mere 17 minutes to reach Mina's residence, where the party was in progress before heading to Mina's place. Octavio sought refuge at his parents' house, addressing his injuries and taking a brief respite. While resting, he received a call from Paul once again. Silent, Octavio listened to Paul's words. Paul expressed regret and disclosed that the idea to rig the fight was, in fact, his own. The conversation took a chilling turn as Paul inquired about Octavio's whereabouts, and unbeknownst to Octavio, a gun was aimed at his head from behind. As Paul continued speaking, Octavio sensed the gravity of the situation. Swiftly realizing the danger, he informed Paul that he wouldn't make it to Leon's birthday party, claiming he was staying at a friend's apartment. Ending the call, Octavio grappled with the guilt of repeatedly causing his daughter sadness by breaking promises. Contemplating his worthiness as a father, his father intervened, providing guidance. Finally resolved, Octavio decided to press on toward Mina's home. Exiting his parents' home through the window, Octavio consulted the time and realized he had a mere 10 minutes remaining. In an attempt to mislead Paul, he called and conveyed that he was headed to the animal shelter to acquire the cat intended as a gift for Laney, fabricating a story about wanting to keep the cat for himself as he no longer had Laney in his life. Responding eagerly, Paul expressed his intention to join Octavio at the animal shelter. Following the call with Paul, Octavio dialed Rico, confessing his ignorance regarding the rigged fight. Sympathetic, Rico assured Octavio that he would be left alone as long as he revealed Chino's whereabouts, as Chino was perceived as the one who had wronged them initially. Arriving at the animal shelter, Octavio rapped on the office window, requesting the person in charge to open the door and provide him with the cat. Despite his plea, the individual remained unyielding. Octavio, frustrated, called Rico once more, disclosing the shelter's address. Following the call, he dialed the Berlin Police Department, simultaneously kicking the door open and entering the animal shelter. During the call to the Berlin Police Department, Octavio reported a police car being rammed by armed and dangerous individuals. Urgently, he provided the address of the animal shelter and emphasized the need to deploy the SWAT team, asserting the extreme danger posed by the men. Meanwhile, the person managing the animal shelter, intimidated by Octavio's urgency, complied with Octavio's instructions. He handed over the cat and swiftly vacated the premises. Observing from outside, Octavio witnessed Aquino's men holding Paul hostage, with time ticking away. Silently, he allowed himself to be forced onto his knees. Chino, wielding a gun, began issuing threats when a sudden gunshot disrupted the tense scene. Danica's men emerged, opening fire on Chino and his associates. Subsequently, a SWAT team arrived, taking control of the situation and apprehending everyone involved. Simultaneously, Chino had led Octavio and Paul into an abandoned building close to the animal shelter. Discovering Octavio's role in informing Danica, Chino grew agitated and shot Paul in the leg. However, before he could do the same to Octavio, Cosma intervened, launching an attack on Chino. The confrontation became a 2-against-1 scenario, but Chino, armed with a weapon, managed to hold his ground. Despite knocking Cosma down, Chino couldn't overpower Octavio's strength. Octavio managed to pin him against a pillar. However, just as Octavio's allotted time reached 0, Chino retaliated by stabbing Octavio in the back with a crowbar. Octavio collapsed, and Chino relentlessly struck him with the crowbar until Cosma, recovering, intervened and attacked Chino. Facing Chino alone, Cosma engaged in the struggle while Octavio gathered himself on the floor. Despite Cosma clearly losing in the confrontation, Octavio seized an opportunity when Chino was momentarily distracted. Octavio approached from behind, putting Chino in a chokehold, allowing Cosma to deliver repeated punches. However, Chino swiftly retaliated, jumping up and kicking Cosma. The force sent her into the railings, causing her to fall. Witnessing this, Octavio rushed to the railings, looking down and fearing the worst for Cosma, who lay lifeless on the ground. Filled with rage, Octavio overwhelmed Chino, relentlessly beating him until he grew exhausted and sat on the ground with his back against the wall. Despite Octavio's fatigue, Chino mustered enough strength to stand up. The pain from the stab wound intensified, and Octavio recognized his inability to fight back any longer. Helpless, he could only watch as Chino slowly advanced towards him, closing the distance. As Cosma regained consciousness and climbed up, she launched a series of kicks and punches, knocking Chino down before collapsing due to her own injuries. Despite the onslaught, it appeared that nothing could truly incapacitate Chino. As he stood back up, he seized a piece of wood, raising his arms and preparing to deliver a final blow to Cosma with his improvised weapon. Throughout the intense struggle, it seemed they had all forgotten that Paul was still alive, present in the midst of the ongoing chaos. Paul seized the gun that Chino had dropped and fired it at the ceiling. Enraged, Chino screamed with all his might, attempting to intimidate Paul. However, Paul aimed the gun at the wall near Chino, compelling him to retreat with his tail between his legs. Cosma approached Paul and assisted him to his feet, while Octavio stood on his own, the immediate threat now diffused. Paul expressed his apologies to Octavio for the trouble he caused, and Octavio, not wanting to harbor anger towards his friend, forgave him. Holding the box containing the cat, Octavio instructed Paul and Cosma to leave without him. Checking the time, he noted that it was already 6 or 4 in the evening. The realization struck him that his allocated time had expired, leaving him with just 4 minutes remaining. Despite his battered state, Octavio resolved to proceed to his daughter. Encountering Chino once again, he set the box down on a nearby table, preparing to face him. Surprisingly, Chino collapsed to the ground. Octavio cleaned himself up with bottled water, then took the cat from the box, carefully wrapping it in cloth. With determined steps, he walked away, leaving the tumultuous encounter behind. Instructing a nearby person to call the police about the unconscious Chino, Octavio continued walking until he reached Mina's home. However, his exhausted body reached its limit, and he collapsed to the ground. The cat wriggled out of his grasp and strolled away just as Laney and Mina emerged from the house, discovering Octavio in his weakened state. Upon witnessing Octavio lying on the ground, Laney laid on top of her father and embraced him, bringing joy to Octavio. Nina appeared, carrying the cat, and assured David that everything was all right, deciding not to pursue sole custody of Laney anymore. Octavio gazed at the house, and as Mina returned inside, he comprehended the situation. Overwhelmed with happiness, he hugged his daughter even closer, emotions welling up inside him, almost bringing tears to his eyes. Don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications to catch more videos like this. Thank you for watching.